church pulpits, sports arenas, and ballroom platforms across the United States to preach a gospel of hate that would set off a federal investigation if it were preached by Southern whites. What are they saying? Listen.
I charge the white man with being the greatest liar on earth. I charge the white man with being the greatest drunkard on earth. I charge the white man with being the greatest swine eater on earth. Yet the Bible forbids it.
So the Nation of Islam and Scientology have become steadily closer and closer together, and some people who are critical of both organizations are somewhat puzzled about this alliance. I will try to explain. It's not as puzzling as many people think. I was aware of this, I think, far earlier than most people, because I was studying fascism, and the Nation of Islam, I think, is legitimately a fascist movement. So I was studying it intensely and found out about this when it was first announced. Well, let me give brief background with Scientology and the Nation. I will be very brief on Scientology, since I assume people know the basics there. Essentially, with Scientology, we have what's known as the Xenu myth, who was a cosmic dictator. He was overthrown thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. Hubbard posited that due to this cosmic war, we have these entities called thetans in our bodies. Scientology is a technology to control the thetan and unlock powers and abilities, etc., etc. But now turning to the Nation, people might be shocked. It is actually very similar. The Nation of Islam does not practice, quote, traditional or real Islam. It doesn't really follow the Quran in any real sense. Instead, it has this very weird kind of science fiction mythology, a lot like Scientology. With it, it has this theory known as the Yakub theory, because you have to explain to blacks who are subordinate, well, wait a minute, if the Nation teaches that black men are superior, how is it that they were enslaved? Well, Elijah Muhammad, the founder, solved this through the Yakub theory, where whites were basically these bad scientific experiments from a very old mad scientist. So it has this kind of science fiction mythology, and like Hubbard, there's this kind of apocalyptic ending, whereas with Hubbard, the Scientologists will clear Earth. With the Nation of Islam, there will be the return of this UFO that will save, quote, black people or those enlightened enough within the nation. So actually, both mythologies are very science fiction oriented. They don't make any sense, but to the followers, they make enough sense. So at the basic level, the ideologies are very similar. But in terms of pragmatism, what is David Miscavige up to? Because there is evidence that it wouldn't be right to say he's a racist, but he's not pro-black either, but yet he's made a concerted effort for Scientology to reach out to the black community. So what is he up to? Putting it bluntly, I think it comes down to this. The Nation of Islam has, for a long time, always had financial difficulties because it's not real Islam, it's not traditional Islam, so it can't get government assistance because it's going to get denied. It still does try to get, and sometimes succeeds in getting government contracts here and there, but it's always had money issues. And its membership is not large, but it is probably larger than even Scientology. So the leadership they have at Scientology now is probably very pathetic. So you're going to get better people, more elite people, but there obviously is a central contradiction that Farrakhan is a black nationalist. But here I think people are not well informed about the Nation. The Nation is a black nationalist organization, but it is not exclusively black. Hispanics, for instance, have always been welcome within the Nation. And again, I'm not defending Farrakhan, but he has always been very active in Latin American politics. He's visited Castro, God only knows how many times. So the Nation has always been very careful. It is very hostile, ironically, to Arabs, clearly Jews. They're very suspicious of Jews and other ethnic groups. However, not Hispanics. So Farrakhan is careful to distinguish different ethnic groups. Some ethnic groups, to him, are akin to blacks, right? They're also oppressed, like Hispanics. Therefore, they can join the Nation, and it's not tokenism. They do reach some leadership positions. Also, the Nation, yes, it is, I want to be very clear here, it is a sexist organization. bet like Scientology, you do have women who have real power. They do have real official status and real positions of power. There are actually a lot more similarities between both organizations and their ideologies than you might think. Again, I'm not praising them. I'm just saying from an organizational angle, you can see why they're coming together, because both of them have very weird, similar mythologies, very similar goals. And again, these are very corrupt organizations. At the individual level, there might be good, quote, Nation of Islam members, good Scientologists, but the organizations and the leadership are very corrupt. I'm just explaining why it is they're coming together, and I think it's frankly very obvious. They are very hateful, very suspicious, paranoid, conspiratorial mythologies, and as organizations, they're very suspicious of the government. They're very hostile to the government. They see themselves as constant victims. So from the perspective of the leadership, it's pretty obvious they actually have a lot of similarities. So they're just building upon connections they already have, right, within Hollywood, among athletes, actors, celebrities who have joined the nation or are very friendly to it. Same thing with Scientology. Yes, Scientology is hostile to traditional religions like Christianity and Islam and even Judaism, but it's really not hostile to some of these more weird or marginalized religions because it can use them. So I think from Miscavige's angle, he's getting bodies. From Farrakhan's angle, he's getting money. Not approving of this alliance, I'm just trying to explain it. It's not as weird as people might think. They actually do have a lot of similarities and they have a lot of shared goals. Not saying we support them, I'm just explaining why this alliance is coming together. Will it sustain itself? Maybe not, but you can see why it's happening. It's not as crazy as
to one person is bad news to another. While you sit here today, knowing that you have come to hear good news, you must realize in advance what's good news for you might be bad news for somebody else. What's good news for the sheep might be bad news to the wolf.
The good news for the black man is that he is on the verge of recapturing his position as ruler of the universe. The bad news for the white man is that his long and wicked reign will shortly be over. And following this introduction, Elijah Muhammad, leader of the...
who looked into the universe, who just looked and observed and put together for all of us. He took out of the universe like that. His name should be mentioned right along with the names of the saints. And we are thankful to Almighty God that a human being like Mr. Hubbard came this way.
Most other celebrities, he also knows that a large percentage of those people have ended up being abused in some fashion. They've had their money taken.
In the Holy Quran, called the Allies. And in that particular surah, it talks about those who believe and want to help man should stand shoulder to shoulder in ranks. See? And what we